All right, anytime, Brett.
Was that better the second time around anyway? Wasn't that better?
Oh, a heck a lot. We didn't have my cell phone go off. So twice.
Said it was silver lining.
There you go. We've got our. We have to hire you as the associate producer.
That's right.
Okay.
She's coming on board today.
You betcha. Okay. You bet. Hey everybody, with John Dodds, the Packer Savant, I'm Tom Pippins. We continue our draft coverage from Enters in Heartland. Just Google the Tom Pippins Show with John Dodds or tompippins.com to find us. And day 2, rounds 2 and 3, an offensive lineman with a 44th pick overall, not Elton John, but Elton Jenkins, 6'4.5" and 310. He played lots of positions. They said all 5 at Mississippi State at one time or another. How key was the versatility to the Packers going after this young man in the second round? And can he step in and play right away?
Well, this is a really interesting pick because based on what the Packers have said, they viewed him as a first-round pick. Not in the top, probably not in the top 22, but should have been a first-round pick. Now, there were a lot of offensive linemen that went early, and there was a run on offensive tackles. This was a bad year for elite offensive tackles. There are a lot of tackles that projected to guard because their arms were too small, or, for example, Jonah Williams of Alabama went to Cincinnati at 11. That was huge for the Packers because the Packers didn't want him at 11. They liked Jenkins better and had him as one of their top-rated offensive linemen.
JD, isn't it interesting? I mean, sometimes it's just the luck of the draw, the way players fall, or otherwise the decisions that people make ahead of these teams, right?
It's a beauty contest. And some people like brunettes better, other people like blondes, other people like redheads.
Right.
So
I like distinguished-looking Packer savant.
I like gray-haired guys, sure. Yeah, gray-haired guys.
Wisdom and splendor, that's what the Bible says. You get that gray hair going, but that's for another podcast.
Well,
all right, so you think this kid,
yeah,
they hit on this kid?
I think they were, based on the scouts, they were very thrilled that he was available. They didn't think he was going to be available. They thought he was going to be taken at the end of round 1. And so they looked at him and they said, and I've talked to I've saw other pundits and other draft sites, they said this was the #1 inside rated offensive lineman. He played center last year, but he can play all 5 offensive positions, which is key in a 45-man roster. That you have a 53-man roster, you have a 46-man game roster. If an offensive lineman gets hurt, you can plug and play, and you can play him at center, you can play him at guard, you can play him anywhere.
And you said to me earlier, John, when we were chatting, there's an infusion of old linemen all of a sudden. Cole Madison coming back, the young man who had some personal problems and missed his rookie season. They get the kid in the trade. So do you like where they're at in terms of the bodies they have up there? How much have they improved a line that has to take good care of Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I watched this Jenkins in the combine, and he was extremely athletic and looked like a great athlete. It didn't look like there was when you think of offensive linemen, I think of big guys like Wisconsin. They're just these huge mammoth guys. This guy carries 310 differently. He looks more athletic. He can move. And he can put on weight, but he looks tough. He can be physical. He can be finesse. He can also play offensive tackle. So if something happened to Bulaga, or Bakhtiari,
right. Left tackle, one of the best in the biz.
Yeah. Oh no, not Bakhtiari.
Right.
But they can fit him in, and they also got Turner in free agency. So Turner, they have him penciled in at right guard, but they could put him in at tackle also. So they have some pieces that they can use, and they're also looking at Spriggs. This is Spriggs' 4th year. It's make or break for him.
What a tease, huh?
He is a tease. He's got all the intangibles. He's got all the measurables. He's got everything but performance. In a lot of ways, the way they compare Spriggs is the way that some people, the critics, criticize Gary. But again, Gary, I think, was more of, he should be making more plays. Well, what is he supposed to do? And I'm reminded of...
Given the way he was used in Jim Harbaugh's Wolverine system?
You have to be very lucky in the draft. And here's I'll give you a quick draft story from 1998. the Packers, Reggie White was getting old. The Packers needed to replace Gabe Wilkins. They needed a defensive end. And Ron Wolf wanted to trade up from 30 to 20 with Jimmy Johnson to get Vonnie Holliday. Vonnie Holliday everybody said he was a tackle. He couldn't play end. And Ron Wolf said, no, he can play end. Well, Vonnie Holliday was great as a sophomore, great as a junior. He made all these plays in the backfield. But his senior year, they said he took the whole senior year off. He didn't have that same want to. I don't know if he was disinterested or he wasn't in shape or whatever it was. He didn't have the same performance level. And so Ron Wolf was down in North Carolina, and one of the backup backup trainer, the assistant trainer said, "Hey Ron, come here. Let me show you something." Takes him into a room, puts on the film of Vonnie Holliday, his sophomore and junior years. Quick first step, going in. Senior year, new defensive coordinator, read and react. No, Vonnie, we want you to just contain and look and let everybody else make the plays. So Ron Wolf was one of the...
odd when you've got a playmaker, huh?
Ron Wolf, but you do what the coach wants.
Right.
And Ron Wolf found out what the truth was, drafted him at 20, was kind of the laughing stock of a lot of the media for doing it, and had a solid guy that played 13, 14 years in the NFL. So you got to be lucky, but you got to do your homework. And I think they did their homework on Jenkins, and I think he's going to be a real versatile player for them on game days. Yeah, I don't know. Right now, I think probably left guard is what they're looking at. He played center all last year. Lindsley and Bakhtiari are near all pro level. So it's great to have this guy in the mix. He could play right tackle. I don't know. But
they have options now, right? They have some
options.
Depth up there.
And if Balaga is healthy, Balaga is still one of the top right tackles in the league. We're going to know a lot game one against the Bears, because if Balaga, if they can beat the Bears week one, the Packers are back and they have the inside track all the way through.
I was surprised they didn't get a slot receiver, but you told me something that I think you should share with the audience. It's really interesting about Devontae Adams.
They're thinking of moving him to slot. So they're going to move him from wide to slot because he has the best get off from press coverage of anyone in the NFL. They've looked at it, and he has foot speed and he has quickness. He doesn't have fast speed. He's not a 4.4 guy. But he's got that near-term quickness, near zone quickness, and they're going to utilize that more in the zone. They're also very high on all three of the rookies last year: EQ St. Brown, and MVS, and Jamon Moore. When Montgomery was traded out of town to Washington last year, he made a comment to Bill Michaels on his show, saying that he thought that the best route runner and the best guy with the highest potential was Jamon Moore. And that's what a lot of other people think too, but Jamon Moore, I don't know if he was thinking too much or what. Al McGuire used to say the best thing about freshmen is they become sophomores.
If they take big jumps, that's huge for Aaron Rodgers.
Then you have your wide guys, and then we're going to talk about the next guy they drafted, and Jimmy Graham. They can play both tight ends in the slot.
All right, well, let's do that. Let's talk about Jace Sternberger, 6'4", 251, out of Texas A&M. There were a couple of players taken from Texas A&M. We'll get to that a little bit later on. So third rounder, apparently really flourished in a pro-style offense for the Aggies. How does that translate into Matt LaFleur's offense?
Well, he was a redshirt junior, and they love his hands. There's three types of tight ends. There's the wide tight end that's in line. That's the traditional one. Hawkinson from Iowa would be the ideal one. Gronkowski would be the ideal one. You can't tell if it's run or pass. Sternberger can play in line, but he's not a devastating blocker, but he's a willing blocker. There's a second type, there's a flex. You put him out in the slot. That's where the Randall Cobb position will be. That, I think they'll use him for mismatches because he's 6'4", and he can get behind the linebackers and occupy the safeties. If he does that down the middle of the field and the safeties are occupied, then Aaron Rodgers' windows to the wide receivers are much bigger because the safety isn't cheating over. So the middle, and all you have to do is look at Brett Favre. Brett Favre was a 3-time MVP when he had Keith Jackson and Mark Chmura. When they were there and the middle was occupied, he could utilize Robert Brooks and Andre Rison and Antonio Freeman much easier than he could when Bubba Franks came. Bubba Franks was more of a short zone player. So get deep, challenge the linebackers, keep them occupied, especially the team to beat, the Chicago Bears. They have very fast linebackers and very good safeties with great instincts. Have somebody that's going to occupy them so the others can get free.
Do you think that they will use in LaFleur's offense Jimmy Graham differently than Mike McCarthy did? Seemed like they want him to block. We know he's not a willing blocker, and he's not a good blocker. He's had the knee issues going over the middle. He's lost some speed, but can they utilize the gifts that he has, big rangy kid, that he could still be a difference maker or certainly contribute to Aaron Rodgers in that offense?
I think they could. It all depends on his knees. It's but they cannot cut Jimmy Graham. They have $4 million. They're $4 million under the cap after the draft. If they cut Jimmy Graham, it's going to be a $9 or $10 million salary cap hit. So you have to keep him on the team this year. But it's going to be interesting. I want to learn more about LaFleur. I've seen if he's running the Ram. I'm not exactly sure what he's going to run. I want to see what he's going to use. But since they didn't draft a Randall Cobb or a jet sweep type guy, I'm wondering if they're going to utilize the tight ends in the slot and Devontae Adams in the slot. And then you also have Trevor Davis from Cal, the old punt returner, who only played 2 games last year because of the hamstring injuries. That might be another reason. Plus they have Kumerow. Jake Kumerow.
Out of UW Whitewater, baby.
He caught an impressive touchdown pass against the Jets, which killed me because it gave the Packers a